Welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast, made for women who want their healthiest years to be ahead of them, not behind them. Join your host, Courtney Townley, right now as she breaks down the fairy tale health story you have been chasing all of your life into sensible action steps and lasting change. Hello and welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast. This is your host, Courtney Townley. Thank you so much for being here, especially this time of year. How you holding up? I mean, we are in the thick of the holiday season, and let's face it, it can be downright overwhelming and exhausting for so many women. For me personally, every year that passes, the more I crave white space in my life, specifically this time of year. So at a time when the culture is telling me to pack more in, all I want is more white space in my schedule, more white space on my desk, in my house, in my head, because white space allows me to breathe and it allows me to create more freely. It makes me feel open and excited. It's kind of like an invitation to possibility or an invitation to restoration. And the beauty is I get to decide. When I have space in my schedule, I get to decide what to do with it, to fill it or not to fill it. And more often these days, I opt to not fill it. But if you don't ever have white space in your schedule, in your life, you don't get to make that choice. So as you move into the season, deeper into it, I would keep encouraging you to look for ways to trim the fat in your life. We talked all about that last week on the podcast. So if you missed that episode, go back and listen to it. In the midst of a season that presents us with the opportunity to do more and buy more and eat more and drink more and entertain more and travel more, I just want more white space. And I don't know you listening, but I bet there's a part of you that craves that too. So on that note, in case you did not listen to last week's episode, I introduced the theme for this month, which is thriving through the holidays. Very appropriate for this time of year, I think. And of course, before I go any further, I just want to let you know that we have created a free roadmap for this month's theme. We do that every month for you. So if you have never registered for one of our free roadmaps, I would encourage you to head on over to graceandgrit.com/thrive. Again, that's graceandgrit.com/thrive. And what you will get when you enter your name and email address is we will send you all of the key takeaways from all of the podcast episodes this month. Plus, we'll give you a lot more additional resources for you to go even deeper on the topics that we introduced this month. Now, I say you only need to register if you have never registered before, because if you have registered in the past for any of our free roadmaps, you will get every free roadmap we ever produce emailed to you. And we usually send it out the second or third week of the month in an email that goes out on a Monday. So if you have registered in the past, you don't need to do it again. But if you've never registered, I highly encourage you to, because it's just an awesome resource to have at your disposal. So once again, on last week's episode, the first episode of this theme, we talked about trimming the holiday fat. And no, I was not talking about the fat on the human body. I was talking about fat in our life. All the commitments that we begrudgingly do because we feel obligated, because it's tradition, because of other people's expectations. If we give ourselves the grace, the permission to bow out of those things, we create more white space in our life, which is so needed because there's really a disconnect between what we believe the holidays are about and how a lot of people go about living them. So I hear people say that the holidays are about love and peace and gratitude and giving and connection. But I also see that many people are not making time for those things. The very people who are declaring that that's what they believe the holidays are about. Or if they are making time for those things, they're barely showing up. They're only partly present because they're stressed and exhausted and overwhelmed, maybe even a little resentful and frustrated because of how much they're taking on. So, in order to roll into the new year, feeling energized and grounded and ready, I would really encourage you to go back and check out episode 190. Now, the holidays also present us with a lot of challenges with food and alcohol. Because everywhere you turn, you will be presented with the opportunity to engage with one or the other, or most often both. And to make it even harder, it seems that our culture is more intent than ever on encouraging us to turn to food and alcohol as forms of entertainment because it sells. And that, of course, can create a lot of undesirable consequences. So today, I want to spend a bit of time talking about the downside of using food, specifically, as a form of entertainment. And I say food specifically because I could talk also about alcohol, because I think food and alcohol in many cases go hand in hand. But I've done a lot of episodes around alcohol. And I also know a lot of people listening to this show don't necessarily drink alcohol. But everybody eats food. So what I really want to lean into is having a conversation about leading the dance with food so it doesn't lead you. Because so often my clients come to me talking about how they feel out of control around food, how they feel like they have no willpower, how they feel like they can't sit with an urge. And to me, all of that is pointing to food leading them rather than them taking control over food. So I'll tell you what got me thinking specifically about the topic of using food as entertainment. Several years ago, I read an article by Joshua Milburn, who I have mentioned on this podcast many times. Really, I should get some kind of fee from them for all the times I talk about their podcast. But the Minimalists, they have a podcast, they have a blog, and Joshua Milburn, I just love his writing. I feel like he really presents some fantastic ideas and talks about minimalism and simplicity in a very understandable way. But I want to read you this article of his that he wrote, because it's very short and it's very powerful. And it kind of sets the stage for this conversation today. This is the article. Food is not entertainment. These 4 words helped me change my dietary mindset, which helped me to change my eating habits, which helped me drop from 240 pounds to 160 pounds in 2.5 years. Fat to thin, unhealthy to healthy, flabby to fit. Accordingly, I no longer treat food as entertainment. Rather, food is meant to nourish. Food is fuel, plain and simple. That does not mean I don't enjoy food, though. I enjoy it immensely. I eat it with friends. I share meals with loved ones. I drink coffee with strangers. The difference is I don't turn to food to entertain me, to comfort me, or to get me through tough times. I turn to food to power my body, to make me feel great, to keep me healthy. I haven't been sick in years, not even a common cold. These things come first. And then I am free to enjoy each meal. That's the end of the article. I love that. I think that's so powerful. In my opinion, should you enjoy your food? Absolutely, 100%. It is so important. Should you be using food as a means to deny, distract, or numb yourself from your life? I don't think that's useful because it prevents you from showing up fully and authentically in your life. And always turning to food as a form of entertainment robs you of the opportunity to expand your life in other ways. So I want to present you with some great questions to ask to better understand your own relationship with food, especially this season. Because again, the holidays, more than any other time of year, really kind of makes us feel like we're marinating in sugar and flour and baked goods and decadent foods. And so a lot of people I work with already have a relationship with food wherein food is leading the dance. And then they go into the holidays and it feels 10 times more that way. And so these are the kinds of questions I get my own clients to ask themselves throughout the holiday season. So they start to become more aware of their relationship with food. Because remember, food is a relationship. You have a relationship with food. And like any relationship, the health of the relationship is going to be based on communication and time and attention. And most of us don't give that to food. We just react to food, and then we expect it to be a healthy relationship. But really, we need to spend time getting to know our relationship with food, questioning it, right? Getting to know it, asking it some questions, observing it, trying to figure out ways where we can better support it. So I hope that these questions will help you to do that. So the first question I would encourage you to ask when you are about to eat something is just ask yourself, why are you eating? Why is a very powerful question. Are you eating because you're hungry? Are you eating because your body needs the nutrition? It needs the fuel? If the answer to that is no, dig deeper. Why are you eating? If you're not eating because of hunger and you're not eating for any nutrient value, you're using food as entertainment in some way. Acknowledge that. Just acknowledge it. Don't judge it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just acknowledge it. Kind of like acknowledging, I have $150 in my bank account. Her shirt is yellow. I have these things to do on my schedule today, right? Just kind of look at it as data. And if you find that you are indeed using food as entertainment, ask yourself this question. Are you at peace with that? Now, in the moment, your answer might be, hell yes, I'm at peace with that. I really want to enjoy that second piece of pumpkin pie. So here's a follow-up question. Will you be at peace with it tomorrow? If you can answer a hearty yes to those two questions, yes, I'm at peace with it. Yes, I will be at peace with it tomorrow. By all means, my friend, proceed. Right? Because this is between you and you. And if you like your reasons, go ahead and use the food as entertainment. But if you don't like your reasons, which I would bet most of you listening, you may like your reason in the moment, but you probably won't like your reason tomorrow. You won't like your reason in a week. You won't be at peace with your decision to use food as entertainment. So if you discover that that's true for you, that you're not at peace with using food as entertainment, then do something else. Don't proceed. Don't eat the thing. You're not hungry. You don't need the nutrition. You have identified you're using it as entertainment. And there's other ways to entertain yourself. There are other ways to cope with emotion, which is, of course, another big reason that people reach for food, right? Other than hunger, other than nutritional value. They're trying to cope with emotion. So how can you entertain yourself and create meaningful experiences with others without relying on food to do that? You know, if I look at my own history, like all of my holidays and celebrations and things of that nature, it is rarely the food that I remember. It's the experience, it's the connection, it's the conversation, it's the stories, it's the memory that I remember. Now, for some of you, it may be a meal that you remember. Some people are they just do. They glean on to, they really enjoy that experience of food, and it is something that they remember. But my point here is that eating food is not the only way to create a shared experience. It is most certainly one of the easiest ways and most universal ways to create a shared experience. But it is by no means the only way. So as you move into the holiday season, I would challenge you to consider how else can you entertain yourself and your loved ones to create some meaningful experiences that really aren't focused on food. So in my family is really big into board games. We love games, all games, charades, board games, word games, puzzles. We love it all. Like, it's just a way that we love to spend time together. We also love to be active. So some of my favorite childhood memories around the holidays, we used to have this pond behind our house where I grew up in Wyoming. And we would go out there in cowboy boots when it was frozen over, and we would play ice hockey in cowboy boots. Now, how anyone in my family did not break a hip or blow out a knee is beyond me. But the laughter, and because nobody could stay on their feet, right? It was such an amazing experience and such a fond memory. We used to go sledding all the time. That's something I still do every year with my son. We make hot chocolate. We go to this sledding hill and we make an afternoon of it. And it's always a great time. I grew up with a draft horse, so my dad would hook up the sleigh and we would, go outside and, kind of do a sleigh ride through the neighborhood with this big horse. And I'm not saying go out and get yourself a horse and a sleigh, okay? I'm just saying think outside the box. What are things that you do with your family and loved ones aside from eating, right? And if you can't think of anything, it's time to get creative and try some things on. Right? Just walking or hiking, doing crafts together, going out and volunteering together, right? To serve people who need the help. Guaranteed that will help to generate some meaningful experiences and some really precious memories. Another question I would encourage you to ask yourself around food this season is, are you eating your emotions? In other words, are you using food or alcohol to not feel something else? Are you using food and alcohol to make yourself temporarily feel better? This is really common right? For a lot of us, because no one ever really taught us how to process difficult emotion. And because difficult emotion doesn't feel great, a lot of us built a habit of doing things to distract ourselves and numb ourselves from difficult emotion when it shows up. So we make a habit out of hiding from difficult emotion rather than allowing ourselves to process it and learn from it. And I say learn from it because emotions, all of them, the good, the bad, and the ugly, they're messengers. They have some information for you about your life. But if you're always sweeping them under the rug or locking them in the closet and never looking at them and getting to know them, you never get to know why they're there in the first place. The holidays will present you with a ton of opportunity to feel difficult emotions. And again, most people, myself included, I did this for years, and I work with tons of clients on this specific issue. We don't allow ourselves to feel difficult emotions. And so we reach for what we call false pleasures, things that make us feel better temporarily, something external to try to change our internal landscape. So food and alcohol, of course, come to mind and are very commonly used. But so is social media, so is Netflix, so is shopping. For some people, it's sex, right? There's lots of things that you can use to distract yourself from difficult emotion. But food is a big one. Food is a big one and a very commonly used one. And the thing is that when we use something to try to cope, something external to try to cope with difficult emotion, the emotion doesn't really go away. We might not feel it for a while, right? We might feel temporarily better, but it comes back. I always use the analogy, right, of the dirt under the rug. The dirt's not gone. It's just under the rug where you can't see it. And when the false pleasure wears off, so when the food wears off, right, or the alcohol wears off, or the Netflix series is over, once again, you are confronted with the original emotion that caused you to do the thing. And again, because it's a habit, many people will go back to their vice, to the consumption of whatever it was that got them to distract themselves from the difficult emotion. So you stay in that vicious cycle, sometimes for years, sometimes for your entire life. It's a cycle of hiding from emotion. And it does two things that aren't really helpful to you. It creates a lot of undesirable consequences, especially with your physiology and your mental health. And it doesn't really allow you to move your life forward based on the messages that you're getting from your emotional landscape because you're not paying attention to them. You're just covering them up. Your feelings are valid. Feelings are messengers. Maybe the message is just that you need to do some mindset management. But sometimes it's that you need to actually take some action in your life that's difficult to take, which is the exact reason why you're avoiding the emotion to begin with. So one of my favorite questions is, what are you actually hungry for? If it's not food, because you asked yourself the question, am I hungry? Do I need the nutrition? Is that why I'm eating? If the answer is no, what are you actually hungry for? Are you hungry for the company of other people? Are you hungry for having a little bit of alone time, which, ladies, this time of year is very valid? Are you hungry for a little bit more sleep? For talking something out? For being heard? What is it? And the final question I want to give you is just how can you ensure that you are leading the dance with food this season, but all seasons? And the way that one of the ways that you can ensure that you are leading the dance with food, there's two primary things I would encourage you to lean into. So you are always leading the dance with food. The first one is you have to take responsibility for balancing your chemistry. And, come on, we have 4 years of episodes on this podcast that are directed towards that topic. Because remember, chemistry is the way you're living your life. Your chemistry is influenced by your lifestyle. So if you are underslept and underfed, or you are eating the wrong kinds of foods that don't work for your body, foods that are too high in sugar, you're not drinking water, you're not managing your stress, you're going to have some hormonal challenges. You're going to have some immune challenges. Your blood sugar is probably going to spike and then crash. And you are most definitely going to be in a position where food is leading the dance. Because when I feel underslept, underfed, not managing my stress, any one of those things, or all of them, all I want to do is eat. All I want to do is give the reins to food and just say, take it away. I am not in a position to have agency over my life when my chemistry is seriously misaligned. And so that's why I'm always encouraging my clients to take responsibility for organizing their life in such a way where they know their chemistry is taken care of, right? You're putting yourself to bed to ensure that you're getting enough hours of sleep during the night. You're planning your food the next day so you know that you're well fed when tomorrow comes. You've already made the decisions about what you're going to eat. You build practices for managing your mental stress. You take water with you everywhere to make sure you're hydrated. You make time in your schedule to move your body. You make adequate time for restoration. Those are all things that help you to balance your chemistry. Now, the second thing that you can do to ensure that you're leading the dance with food is manage your thoughts and manage your emotions. Because how we think is going to drive how we feel. And how we feel is going to inspire action or inaction. But when I say how we feel inspires action, if I feel sad and I don't have the skills or the awareness to recognize what I'm doing, I might take action with food that I later regret. I might take action with alcohol that I might later regret. I might take action with my words. I might say something to someone that I later regret. So taking responsibility for how we're thinking about our life is so important because it drives our emotional landscape. And our emotions have everything to do with how we show up or how we don't show up in our life. So to lead the dance with food, balance your chemistry, take responsibility for your chemistry, and take responsibility for your mental and emotional landscape. I said that was the last question, but it's actually not. There's one more. What can you do to fully experience food when you do eat, even if it is for entertainment? Here's why I put this as the last question. You may decide that eating on occasion for entertainment purposes is something that you are at peace with. That is for you to decide. But in those moments where you decide to eat something, not for the nutritional value, not because you're hungry, but because you just want to eat it, I strongly recommend that you do these few things to ensure that you continue to lead the dance. Number one, be grateful, right? Be grateful for the thing. Take a moment to pause, take a few breaths before you actually start eating it. Be present. Be fully present. Notice everything about that food. Take your time with it. Put the fork down between bites. Try not to multitask while you're eating it. Really enjoy it. Really experience it. Because if you don't experience it, you know what you're going to do? You're going to eat more of it because you haven't tasted it. You were talking, you were, multitasking, you were doing whatever you were doing while you were eating it. You didn't taste it. And we know you weren't eating it because you were hungry, right? This is something you were doing purely for entertainment value. And you missed the entire experience of it. I have done this so many times. I have been such a fast eater my entire life. To this day, if I don't pause to remind myself to slow down, I can get myself into a lot of trouble. I could easily down probably an entire pizza, a bag of chips, a bag of M&Ms, you name it. And if I'm multitasking, I can consume the entire thing and never have tasted it. So what the hell's the point? If I did it for entertainment value, if I did it because I really just wanted to experience the flavor or the texture or whatever it is, and I didn't even allow myself that experience, it just leads to more trouble. So something to consider. Be grateful, be present, go slow, really slow. Because it takes your brain a while to register that's full also. And if you really experience a few bites of something, you may decide much sooner that you don't need any more of it, right? You might decide that after just a few bites, it's enough because you really tasted it and experienced it. So my final note on this conversation of leading the dance with food is stay awake to your relationship with food, especially this time of year. The holidays give you an awesome opportunity to look at how you are dancing with food. Is it leading you or are you leading it? And hopefully I gave you a lot of tools to take back your power in that dance, right? So you can lead the dance with food. Remember, we do have a roadmap for you, lines out all 4 weeks of the podcast this month, all the key takeaways, and some extra little resources we have for you so you can go a little deeper on these topics. You can register for that at graceandgrit.com/thrive. And next week, I'm going to talk all about kind of supercharging your immunity this time of year, because I do see that just with the lack of sleep and the increase in sugar, the increase in alcohol, the increase in stress, a lot of people's immune systems start to tank this time of year. And so I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about how to give your immune system a little bit of TLC so you can roll into the new year, hopefully, without getting sick. All right, my friends, that's all I have for you today. I always appreciate your feedback. So if you ever want to reach out to me, you can always get a hold of me at Courtney@graceandgrit.com. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here, and I hope to see you back here again next week. Thank you for listening to the Grace and Grit podcast. It is time to mend the fabric of the female health story, and it starts with you taking radical responsibility for your own self-care. You are worth the effort, and with a little grace and grit, anything is possible.